Okay, welcome into episode 54 of Happy Medium. I know it's been a couple weeks since I was able to do an episode. My apologies on that. Been a little busy. Been a few weeks since I've done an interview, maybe a month or so. But my next guest and I have been texting a little bit back and forth. He's been extremely busy, so thankful that we could find a time today. So without further ado, I can present him to you. Fox Sports Fox Sports broadcaster, Big Ten network. He's called seemingly every sport under the sun, and most importantly, a fellow alum of Lyons Township High School, the same high school that I went to myself. So I present to you guys Connor Onion. Connor, thank you so much for being able to come on with me, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Sam. Episode 54, Brian Urlacher episode. Let's go.
Yes, sir. After the Bears' big win on Monday, finally
Yeah,
feeling a little bit better.
no doubt. No doubt. Good to be on with a fellow Lion too. I know we have a couple of LT graduates that are in the industry, so always good to be on with fellow LT alum.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're the first LT alum that I've had on. Obviously, there's not a ton of people that you interact with daily that kind of are from the same area and go to the same school. So always cool to think about my high school days and youth uh, youth days. So we can get started here, Connor. So I typically like to start off all my episodes with a similar hitting question. So, uh, you could kind of take this either route that you want, but what would you say either kind of your first introduction was into sports in general, or if you just want to talk about your first introduction into the sports broadcasting world too?
Yeah. Well, my first introduction into sports was maybe familiar to you. I don't know if you played in LaGrange Little League growing up, but I was on we called ourselves, I think we had a sponsor. We were the Santiago's Scorpions because of the Mexican restaurant in town was our sponsor. So that was my first T-ball team and the first sports team I can remember being a part of. And I loved listening to Cubs and White Sox games growing up and Bulls games. Love the NFL. I didn't have a college team growing up, but still watched the game. So I was kind of immersed in everything. And I had a cousin that played college volleyball, so that was kind of my introduction into falling in love with that sport that I cover now. So you kind of mentioned it in the open. I do a lot of different sports. I played a lot of different sports growing up. Um, I don't know if you remember CPCFRO.
Yeah.
Yeah, the elementary school league that was in our hometown that was I think it was Ogden, Congress Park, Forest. What am I missing? Yes, exactly. Yeah, and then where I went, Cosset. Um, so that was I'd say one of my first organized forays into basketball and volleyball and playing sports in that way. So definitely a dream come true coming from those leagues to getting to cover, the NBA and Major League Baseball and college football and college volleyball now.
Yeah, those CPCFRO days were something I think I played fifth and sixth grade. I didn't know that you went to Casa. I actually went to Ogden, so it's
Oh, the rival. You're our rivals.
those were fun times. So kind of off that, and I'm sure when you went to LT, you kind of started to gain some experience in broadcasting and media and that kind of thing. So kind of what was your first foray then off that into sports broadcasting and doing games?
Mhm. Yeah, so when I was at LT, it wasn't really until my senior year that I had any idea that I wanted to even try it. I had somebody that was a year ahead of me at LT, Johnny Lombardi, who was very involved in LT TV. And as an athlete, I played football and basketball at LT. Johnny was the voice to a lot of our games. I'm sure a lot of people in the area and NFL fans even know the name Jake Elliott. who kicked a couple of game-winning field goals my junior year. I always tell people that's um, those situations happened in spite of me because I couldn't drive us down to score a touchdown. So Jake had to kick long field goals to bail out the offense. But Johnny was the voice to those big moments for Jake and some of the teams that I played on. And Johnny was great to me my senior year when he had gone on to LSU and had asked me to fill in on some shows for him. And we did a TV show together on LTTV. And really, that was just two people that were passionate about sports. And I didn't necessarily think it was going to be a career, but it was fun. And I liked hanging out with Johnny and Sean Murphy and Bill Allen, who's in charge of LTTV. We're all fun people to be around. And I kind of just thought I was doing it as like, yeah, I'm a sports nut. Let's talk about sports and have some fun. But then when I went to Ball State University, um, it wasn't really until my junior year that I got serious about it. I kind of played around with, I was a psychology minor for a little bit. I thought about going to the Miller School of Business at Ball State and maybe pursuing marketing or something like that. But I had a roommate that pushed me into it and just kind of said, "Look, man, you love sports. You've been in sports since you were 3, 4 years old. Uh, you're spontaneous when we have conversations and kind of think on your feet quickly. So I think you could be good at play-by-play." And he was kind of right. Like I think I had some of the bare bones that would lead you to eventually being good at it. But I was horrible when I first started. Like just so lost. But I fell in love with it pretty quickly, and yeah, I was kind of off to the races my junior year. Fell in love with it, started pursuing it, and turned it into what I wanted to do professionally.
So I guess how were you able to kind of enhance your skills over at Ball State? And then kind of when you finished up there and then started your journey into, like your first jobs out of college too.
hmm we had a program, still the program there now, Ball State Sports Link, which it's not just play by play and announcer driven, it's production driven, it's digital storytelling driven. The whole essence of the program is you need to be able to tell stories in a lot of different ways. So to kind of earn my way on air, I had to be willing to pick up a camera and wrap cables and run audio on our telecasts. So that was kind of my entry point into live TV was running audio. I ran like the worst looking slash camera you will have ever seen in broadcast history. Like I didn't know how to focus the camera, barely knew how to pan it. I had my director yelling at me, like, focus on the ball, find the ball. Um, so I think my professors and my classmates found out pretty quickly that that wasn't my strength, and that maybe my strength was talking about the sports. So, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier, my junior year was when I really got to go all in on calling football, basketball, called some soccer, called some field hockey, and got to just, kind of figure it out on the fly on the air, how to call a game. And that led me into minor league baseball right out of college. And that was huge for me because I was green. Like I said, I started late in my college career and I needed those 140 straight days of baseball to be on the air every single night and get better.
So I know you went back to LT like a couple years ago, and you and I think it was Chris Thomas like filmed that like little interview together. And I actually went back and watched that when I was prepping to do this, and I know you were just talking about baseball. I believe you started out with was it the single A affiliate for the Houston Astros?
It was, yeah, 2017 in Quad Cities.
So I guess how was that experience, and then how were you able to transition from there over to ESPN too?
hmm Yeah, so it wasn't a direct jump from Quad Cities to ESPN, but it was a few years after that. But so I actually ended up leaving college 2 months early. And March of my senior year, I moved to Davenport, Iowa. And that was, just kind of how the job cycle worked was either I took a job in the spring of my senior year and tried to figure out how to finish my degree, or I waited until the March of the following year. And, it probably would have been a little bit harder to figure out what my first job would have been. And I would have been waiting around, and I don't like to sit still. So that was something I worked with my professors to figure out, like, can I finish my degree online? They helped me do that. Ball State was great with it. And then I finished my 2 months while being in Davenport, Iowa. So from there, my next step was that fall, I got a job at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. And I was there, I was a graduate assistant, um, you know, living in a very small apartment, not making very much money. I always joke with people I had enough hot water for like a 1 minute shower. Um, and then spent 5 years at Southern Illinois. Mike Reese, who's been a mentor to me, was my boss there. He was the voice of the Salukis for about 40 years on radio. And he kind of gave me the freedom to build my resume as a TV announcer. And eventually, Big Ten Network and ESPN took notice, and I got some chances to call games for those two networks.
So, do you remember like kind of your emotions and that type of feeling when you, I guess, got that call or email or whatever it was from ESPN, given that, it was a pretty big break, I'm sure, for you from, going from Southern Illinois to now broadcasting all kinds of games for a huge network?
Yeah, so part of my time at Southern Illinois was I would still do minor league baseball during the summer. So by the time I got the call from ESPN, I actually remember exactly where I was. I was in my third job in minor league baseball. So I went Quad Cities, 2 years with Kane County, and then the Windy City Thunderbolts were my third stop in minor league baseball. And we were on a road trip just outside of St. Louis. We were playing the Gateway Grizzlies, and it was, the dog days of August. It was probably heat index of 105 degrees, and we're kind of slogging through this day game in Gateway. And I looked at my phone and noticed I had a call from a Connecticut area code. I was like, oh, that could be spam. Maybe that's somebody trying to get my credit card information. But I had a voicemail as soon as we got done with the game, and it was one of the bosses at ESPN that said, "Hey, we've been following your stuff at SIU. We'd love to give you a chance to call a college football game." Um, so that that moment was, yeah, that it wasn't, like I didn't break down in tears or anything like that, but there was some joy. There's a fist pump, and definitely some outward excitement on getting that first chance to do that.
So, kind of just about your experience at ESPN, how would you say that your time was there with that network? And then, what was that kind of second major transition for you, like over to Fox Sports?
hmm Yeah, I loved my time at ESPN. I did my second and third year there. I did the high school football package where every week we're seeing some of the best high school prospects in the country. So, Jackson Arnold, who's now the starting quarterback at Auburn, like we got to go and call his high school football game at Denton Guyer in Texas. And Makai Lemon, who's now a star receiver at USC, we got to call his game with Los Alamitos. Got to call the Under Armour All-America game where all those five-star players come together. So it was a blast. Like Craig's an awesome dude. Like I still talk to him today. And we have people that I'm covering in the Big 12 and the Big 10 now that were part of that circuit. And it feels like I text Craig weekly, like, "Hey, you'll never guess who I ran into today. It's Avery Johnson, the quarterback at Kansas State, who was with us at the Under Armour game." Um, so those relationships are um, something I hold close to me. And it was hard to make the decision a couple of summers ago of, where do I want to take this fork in the road in my career? Because it was two options. It was, continue doing what I'm doing with ESPN or go all in on Fox and BTN and go that route. And it was a difficult decision and some difficult calls that I had to make to say, hey, I'm going this route. Thank you for everything. I'm gonna miss you guys.
So I kind of want to talk about maybe a little something specific related to your job and not maybe the companies that you work for now. So I know you called a lot of different games. You know, you've called baseball, basketball, football, just like I said, any sport pretty much. So, um, are there aspects of your broadcast preparation that you would say you might focus on more so than others if it depends on the game or sport that you're calling?
Yeah. Um, I'll give you an example with football, for example. There are so many people on a college football team. So I'm covering Texas Tech against Arizona State this weekend. Huge game in the Big 12. Obviously that's the headline is it's Texas Tech, the Big 12 favorite, against the reigning Big 12 champion, Arizona State. But beneath the surface on my prep, um, I need to know who the fourth string defensive tackle is for Texas Tech. And they play a lot of guys in their defensive line. Like they legitimately go four deep at each position on their defensive line. So that's not something that is a factor in my prep when I'm doing volleyball or baseball or basketball, just because the pure volume of rosters is smaller in those sports. But with football, it can be kind of a beast to get ready for. So yeah, there are those intricate details I would say that are different sport to sport for sure.
Yeah, because I know like that that one clip that I had mentioned earlier when you did that interview at LT a couple years back. I saw you had that big chart of like two different college football teams, and I mean, I can only imagine the amount of prep and hours that you would put into that, and I'm sure kind of doing that for like every single game that you do for college football too. Like there's just an incredible amount of prep and
Yeah, fun prep though. It's fun to learn about these players and these coaches and their stories and I get to spend a little time with them on Fridays before our games. So it is hard work, but it's fun. I shouldn't even say it's hard work. It is a lot of work. Um, but it's very, very rewarding.
so I actually want to maybe not touch on something that happened recently, but I want to base one of my questions off this. So I know you had the opportunity, I believe it was last week, you called the Bulls game with DC King. So I don't want to ask you how that experience was per se, but now that you've called pro sports and college sports too, would you say that there's similarities or differences between prepping for one or the other?
A little bit. I mean, the NBA obviously versus college, you have more of a database of information to go off of with these guys. Whereas this college, if you're watching the first game of the season on November 3rd when the season opens this year, it might be your first time seeing Michigan's point guard, for example. Like even the diehard Michigan fans might be watching them for the first time. But even like the Bulls played the Cavs the other night when I called the game, and Tyrese Proctor played for the Cavs, who was a 3-year player at Duke. And yes, he was new to the NBA, but if you're a fan of basketball, you've probably seen Tyrese Proctor play before. And I definitely had from covering college and watching college. So just the baseline of where you start with your prep was a little bit different because Tyrese Proctor could walk into the room right now and I'd be like, oh, that's Tyrese Proctor. Like I don't need to watch a single second of film to know that's Duke's former guard and now he plays for the Cavs. Same with, Booz Ellis and Essengay and some of the guys that the Bulls got because I am a Bulls fan. So I follow the team and have a general idea of what's going on in the day to day with the Bulls just from being a fan my whole life. And that's not always the case with college games that I'm covering. Because, one day I might be in the Big Ten, the next day I might be in the Big 12, the next day I might be in the Big East. So you're hopping around and you're more introducing the characters to the audience versus going to that next layer like you are in the NBA.
So, like I said, you called so many different sports at I'm sure so many different levels. Would you say that there's, if you had to pick one game that sticks out to you as as your favorite or your most memorable that you've called so far and why?
Ooh, man. That's the fact that it's hard to pick one makes me realize how fortunate I am that there have been multiple. Um, my Major League Baseball debut will always be special to me. I called the Astros and the Rangers in Houston. And as we were talking about before, I started my career in minor league baseball. And the Astros were the affiliate of the team that I worked for. And there were four guys on the Astros the day I made my debut that were on the team that I made my quote unquote professional debut out of college in minor league baseball, including Yordan Alvarez. So that was pretty surreal. Um, Colorado against Baylor last year when Colorado threw a Hail Mary to force overtime, Shedeur Sanders to LeJohntay Wester. That's one that's close to me. And then, this past Thursday night, calling my first NBA game for my hometown team. If I had to pick three off the top of my head, let's just make it a Mount Rushmore because Nebraska played an outdoor match and had the world's largest crowd at a women's sporting event ever in 2023. And I don't know how that was the fourth thing that came to my mind, um, but that's up there too. So yeah, I'm a lucky dude to have three or four that come to mind.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure all those moments must have been awesome. I know you mentioned your first base or your first MLB game. How you had Yordan Alvarez on that team, and then you had also covered him back in single A too. Did you get to like kind of form a relationship at all with him? Kind
A,
of like.
a, a little bit. I wouldn't say we're like best buds now, but part of my job was to pick the players up from the airport because I was making $600 a month, and the job description was play by play and all other duties as assigned. And I thought maybe that would mean like I don't know, I'd run stats down to the clubhouse every once in a while. But that meant filling up the vending machine, cleaning the press box, and pretty much every day was at least a 16-hour workday. Um, and I think but the general manager of our team saw that I had a Chevy Suburban when I showed up for the job, and was like, "Wow, that can fit a lot of people. Connor can be our runner." So, um, I was the assigned person that picked players up when they were being either promoted or demoted and took them to the airport and picked them up from the airport. And Jordan was one of them. Jordan joined us, I think, the middle of May of that year. So I picked him up from the airport and he only spoke Spanish. And fortunately, I still had a little bit of my Spanish vocabulary from college and from high school, and we were able to have kind of a broken Spanish conversation. But I could tell that he appreciated the effort, and he laughed at a few things that I said because I probably made a fool of myself. But it was nice to have that interaction. And then as he moved up the ladder, and then eventually I met him there in the big leagues for that day, he the memories seemed to come back to him too of he picked me up from the airport. I remember him saying, "¿Cómo estás, papi?" as soon as he got in the car. And that's about what he said in that clubhouse that day too, before the Astros Rangers game.
Oh, sweet, sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great way to wrap up this, as I do know that you do have to run soon. But Connor, thank you so much for being able to hop on with me today. I know it, may have taken a minute to set it up with your busy schedule, and I'm busy too with stuff. But thank you so much for being able to come on, and always great to talk with a fellow LT Lion. So appreciate it.
Yeah, go Lions. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate making time for me and thinking of me to do this.
Yeah, you got it.